as it's Halloween, we're just going to do a Halloween dish here, and we're going to do Colcannon. So we have our curly kale, we have a mixture of potatoes, we have some butter, and we have some onion. So that's going to be our Colcannon, our curly kale, potatoes and onion. Okay, so we're going to have a stir fry of veg. We have some broccoli, carrots already chopped up, and we have some peppers and onions there. Okay, and we're going to do a baked chicken with a mushroom sauce. Okay, mushroom gravy. Okay, so we're going to start putting this Halloween traditional dish together now. So here we are, we have all our prep done, and we have our kale. Our curly kale is washed. It's very important to wash the kale, give it a good wash, because it does have kind of a sand or muck kind of texture in it. Okay, so what we've done is we've washed the kale, and then after we've washed it, we've finely chopped it. Okay, so that's how finely chopped you will need your kale to be. Okay, like chopped parsley. Okay, so our kale is done. Our potatoes are cut, are peeled and washed, and we've cut them into four just to speed up the process of them cooking. Okay, we have our onions here. This is our finely chopped onions. Our onions are going to go into the finished Colcannon. Okay, so we're not going to cook them onions. Okay, we have our veg here for our stir fry and for our side, so we're going to blanch this veg off as well. We have our chicken, we have our onions for our sauce, and we have our mushrooms washed and cut in quarters for our mushroom sauce for our chicken. And then this is just the peppers and the onions that we have here to add to our stir fry. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to start the process in relation to cooking the kale. So I boiled the kettle. The kettle is here. It's boiled. Okay, so we're going to put some water, boiling water, into the potatoes. Okay, we're going to put some boiling water into the kale, and we're going to put some boiling water in on top of our vegetables. Okay, so we're going to add some salt, some sea salt here. We have our sea salt. Okay, so we're going to sprinkle our sea salt into our potatoes, and we're going to season our curly kale, and we're going to season our veg. Okay, so we're going to take our onions and put them to one side, and we're going to start the process now of cooking our potatoes and our kale. Okay, and the same here, we're just going to bring our veg to the boil here. Okay, so we're just going to bring this veg back to the boil, and then we're going to wash it off, and this veg here is going to participate in the stir fry. Okay, so when you're cooking green veg, it's best to cook it without a lid. Okay, when you're doing potatoes, you always put a lid on the pot. Okay, so off we go. The cooking process is going to start now. So as we can see here, our kale has just come to the boil. Okay, so we're just going to lower down the gas on the kale, and we're just going to let it cook out for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, our stir fry veg, our carrots mange too, and carrots, our broccoli mange too, and carrots are back to the boil. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these off, and we're going to wash them off and cool them down in cold water. Okay, so that they stop cooking. Just to give you an insight into the kale is on now the last 10 minutes, so it's after being it was brought to the boil, and it's on simmer. So you can see the kale is starting to cook. It's starting to soften up. So we don't want it too soft. We still want a little bit of a bite left in the kale. So we're 5 minutes away from the kale being ready and being cooked. Okay, so we see here our potatoes are boiling away there in the background, and we're just waiting on the potatoes to cook as well. They're coming along nicely. Okay, so we're just going to focus on the Colcannon. Okay, we're not far off. The kale, as I say, the curly kale is not far off being cooked. There's no harm in giving it a stir. So all that's in this is kale, and boiled salted water. Okay, so we're nearly there now, and the kale is nearly cooked. The potatoes aren't far off being cooked either. Okay, just going to lower down gas there on the potatoes. There we go, 15 minutes in the cooking time, and the kale is cooked. Okay, so what we're going to do now with the kale, we're going to strain the kale. We're going to get all the water off the kale. Okay, so there we go. We're after straining our kale, so we want to get it nice and dry. Okay, so we're just going to leave it in the strainer over the pot, so as we can get our kale to a nice kind of not too wet consistency. Okay, so there we are. Our kale is just straining, and there we're just going to let it sit just for another minute or so. There we see our kale is nice and dry now. There's no water in it at all, excess water. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the kale into the pots now. Okay, so our kale is nice and dry. You can see there's not much water in the kale at all. It's well strained. So what we're going to do is now, the trick in cooking, what really gives food a lovely flavour is butter. Okay, so we've diced up a half a pound of Kerrygold butter. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a few knobs of the butter into the kale. Okay, I like to let the knobs of butter melt into the kale, because what happens is if you melt the butter separately, it's it might crack, or it might it's not the same. I like to put knobs of butter in. Okay, so we have the knobs of butter in there to the kale. So what we're going to do is now we're just going to stir the kale. Okay, we're going to put a lid on the pot. Okay, and we're just going to let our butter melt into our kale naturally. Okay, so our potatoes aren't far off it, they're nearly there. Okay, we're just going to check them there with a fork. Okay, so we're just going to check the potatoes aren't far off. As you can see, the potatoes are nearly there. The fork is going right through the potatoes. So we're just going to give our potatoes another 5 minutes, and then they're ready to go now. Okay, so our kale, the butter is just melting naturally into the kale, into our dry kale. We're just straining all the water off. Okay, so we're going to let the butter strain into the kale. Okay, the butter just melt into the kale, and we're going to put the lid on it and just put it to one side. Okay, so everything is starting to come together now in relation to the pot. So our potatoes are ready for straining now. As you can see there, they're nicely well. I cut them into cubes to speed up the process of them being cooked, and it also all the potatoes in the pot will cook at the same time. Alright, so our potatoes are cooked now. So what we're going to do is we're going to strain our potatoes, get all the water off them, let them sit for a few minutes, and we will get back to them then. So there we go, we're after straining our potatoes. Our potatoes are in the strainer, so we're making sure that all the excess water is off the potatoes as well. So you can see the potatoes are nice and we have a mixture of roosters and a mixture of white potatoes. So there we can see the different varieties of potatoes, and the potatoes are nice and floury. So their potatoes are ready for mashing. Okay, so we've strained all the excess water off them. So what we're going to do is now we're going to mash. So there we are, we're mashing the potatoes. I like to use a whisk when I'm mashing the potatoes. So I'm just nice and gentle, just mashing the potatoes there to get them into a nice creamy kind of consistency. Okay, so I'm mashing away with our potatoes nice and gently with a whisk. We're not done mashing our potatoes. Okay, so another very important flavour for potatoes is butter. Okay, normally they use Kerrygold butter, and it gives a lovely flavour to your potatoes. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we cut up a half pound of butter. Okay, so we've put a third of the butter to the Colcannon, okay, into the curly kale. Okay, we're putting the other third of the butter into the potatoes. Alright, again, I like knobs of potatoes in the potato, and I like to let the butter melt into the potato. So here you can see we're getting a lovely creamy consistency now with our potatoes. Okay, so give the potatoes a good whisk up, whisk the butter in, and continue to cream the potato. Go, give the potatoes a good whisk up, good whisk, okay, a good whisk. Alright, and they're lovely and creamy now, lovely. The potatoes are lovely and creamy there, as you can see. To show you now the consistency. So there's our potatoes, lovely and creamy potatoes. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to we're going to add some more salt, just a little bit more seasoning into the potatoes, and we're going to add some parsley, just a tiny bit, and we're going to add some chives into the potato as well. Okay, so we're going to give that a stir, and then we're going to start adding in our kale. As you can see there, our kale is the butter has absorbed into the kale. Okay, and our mash is all ready to go. Okay, so what we're going to start doing is we're going to add our kale into our mashed potatoes, and we're going to give it a good stir. Okay, so just add half in, and then we'll add in the other half. Okay, we can see there our colcannon is starting to take place now. We've added in half the kale, and what we're going to do is now we're going to add in the other half. Okay, so we're going to give that a good stir. Okay, and we're going to make sure that the kale is well blended through the potato by giving it a good mix. So there we go, our kale is nice and rustic through our potatoes. Okay, it's mixed well. So the last thing we're going to add now is our chopped onions. Okay, so we've chopped up one red onion just for colour, and we finely chopped it. Okay, so we're adding that into the kale now. So we're just going to mix that through. Okay, we're going to give the red onion a good mix through, and your kale then your curly kale or colcannon will be completed now. So there we go, there's our kale. Our colcannon now is completed. Okay, so that's the consistency that it would need to be. You don't want it runny, you just want it nice and creamy. So some people like to use scallions instead of onions, raw scallions. Some people like to use just the white onion. I just put red onion in it just for a little bit of colour. Alright, so what we're going to do is now with the colcannon, we're going to put it to one side, and we're going to get started on our chicken and our baked chicken and our stir fry veg to accompany the colcannon. A tip to keep our colcannon hot is boil some water in a kettle, bring it to the boil in a pan. Okay, lower it right down. Okay, and then just add your colcannon, potted colcannon into it. So what that is going to do is that's going to keep our colcannon hot while we're putting the rest of the meal together. Okay, so in this pot here I just have diluted and brought to the boil some vegetable stock cubes. Okay, and we have our pan on, which is nice and hot here, and for our chicken. Okay, we have our olive oil. We have some olive oil here in the pan. Okay, so we're just going to let that sizzle away. I have some flour here. We're going to coat our chicken, and we have some flour and some salt, and we have some parsley. Okay, and some black pepper. All right, so we're just going to coat our chicken with this coating. Okay, so all it is flour, salt, pepper, and parsley. Okay, so our pan is sizzling away there. We're going to lower everything down. Okay, our pan is nice and sizzling. So what we're going to do is we're going to work from left to right. Okay, we're going to use this hand here, our right hand. Just going to dip the chicken just in the flour, just to coat it. All right. Okay, just like so. Okay, and what we're going to do is, okay, this side, this side, this side down. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing with this one. Okay, make sure it has a good coating of flour. Okay, okay, and then we're going to pop it on the pan again away from you. Okay, so again, I'm going to toss this one in the flour. Okay, and what we're doing is now we're putting a coating on the chicken and we're sealing the chicken now by placing it into a hot pan. Okay, so again, we're coating the chicken. Okay. Okay, the last one, and then we're putting it in the pan. Okay, so we're sealing the chicken. So I'd just like to mention, after we put our chicken in the pan, it's very important that you wash your hands, okay? You wash your hands in warm, soapy water after handling the raw chicken, okay? So here we can see is our chicken is sealing off, okay? So we're just going to turn around the other side so you can see here the nice chicken fillet is picking up a nice coat here, okay? So the trick is, dip it into the flour, into a really, really hot pan, okay? Seal it on one side, then turn it over and seal it on the other, okay? So you're sealing all the flavours of the chicken, and then the chicken is not going to shrink, and it's also going to keep the flavours, okay? So we're just going to let that cook there for 5 minutes. We're going to seal it off, we're just sealing it, and then we're going to finish it off in the oven. Okay, so we're just sealing, we're after sealing the chicken on both sides, we're after giving it a nice coat there, a nice colour, and then we're going to bang it in the oven on a tray for about 20 minutes. So there we go, our chicken is nicely sealed on both sides, okay, right, the chicken will end up being nice and crispy because of the nice flour coating that we put on it. So our chicken is ready for the tray. It's sealed off and it's ready to be finished in the oven. So I like to use a fork when I'm picking up the chicken. You have more control over the chicken fillet with a fork. Okay, so there we go. So we have our 4 chicken fillets, alright, ready to go into the oven. We're going to cook these chicken fillets off for about 20 minutes. Okay. So our chicken fillets are gone in the oven, in a nice hot oven. So we're going to just turn the oven down, okay, to just below 200, around the 180 mark, alright. So we're going to let the chicken cook away for 15 to 20 minutes. When our chicken is cooking away in the oven, we're going to use the pan that we sealed off the chicken in, and what we're going to do is we're going to start making our mushroom sauce, alright. So what we have here, we have our pan. We're heating up our pan again. The gas is on underneath the pan. Okay, we just give it a stir. You know, we want to capture all the sediment, you know, in the pan. You know, we want to make sure that the sediment of the chicken is well balanced out on the pan. So we're just going to let the pan sizzle, and what we're going to do is we're going to add in our finely chopped onion. Okay. Okay. And we're just going to let that saute away, let it sizzle away. Just going to let that cook out without colouring for about 3 minutes. Okay, so what we're doing is we're capturing all the flavours of the chicken that we sauteed off. Okay, so we're going to make a nice mushroom sauce. Okay, so our onions are cooking away there, we just have them sauteing away. Okay, so what we're going to do is now is we're going to add in our mushrooms. Okay, so we're going to let our mushrooms cook away. Just going to colour our mushrooms and bring out a nice flavour in the mushroom. There we go. Our onions and mushrooms are sauteing away there. They're up nicely. So what we're going to do is we're going to lower down the gas underneath our mushrooms and onions, and we have them to the right texture and the right consistency that we're looking for. So my missus has bought herself a nice bottle of wine. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to infuse the sauce with the white wine. She doesn't know that I'm going to be using the dribble of her red wine in the sauce, but you know, there might be the dribble gone out of the bottle, and later on she'll have drank the whole bottle. So I'm just going to add some of the red wine into the sauce, just to infuse it, just a dribble. Okay, maybe a little bit more than a dribble. Okay, so there we go. Our red wine has gone into our onions and mushrooms, and the smell, the flavour, which is absolutely beautiful. Alright, so we're going to bring the wine up to the boil. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're just going to let it reduce a bit. Okay, we're going to add in some, we have a heaped tablespoon of tomato puree. So we're going to add the heaped tablespoon of tomato puree in also. Okay, the tomato puree will help as well with the thickening process of the sauce. Okay, so we're just going to let that reduce the way there, and we're going to capture all the flavours. The wine won't be too overpowering in the sauce, because we will be putting some stock into the sauce. So as you can see, the wine and the tomato puree and the mushrooms and onions, they're after thickening, they're after reducing a bit, and it's starting to form a nice consistency. So what we're going to do is we have our vegetable stock that we made here already, and we're going to add some of the vegetable stock, maybe not at all. Okay, so we've added about a half a pint of stock, vegetable stock, into the sauce. So what we're going to do now with the sauce is we're going to bring it to the boil, okay, and then we're going to let it reduce. Okay, and that's going to be our lovely mushroom sauce, our lovely red wine mushroom sauce for our chicken. So I can capture what is going on. Our sauce has reduced and it's starting to thicken up. Okay, just reduce the sauce there by nearly half. Just let it simmer away in the background. Okay, our Colcannon is nice and hot there. So what we're going to do is now we're going to start sauteing off our vegetables now for stir fry. So again, just another little dribble of oil, olive oil on the pan. Okay, just let it sizzle. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to add in our onions and our peppers. Alright, so we just look at that sizzling away. So what we're going to do is now we're going to give it a little bit of stir. So we don't want to overcook our stir fry, we just want it to be nice and crispy. Okay, so here we have, we're just sauteing off our onions and our peppers. Okay, and then when they're nice and crisp, what we're going to do is then we're going to add in our pre-cooked blanched mange tout, broccoli and carrots into the stir fry. Okay, so we just let that saute away. Okay, we can add another little bit of salt, just a tiny bit of salt just to season. Okay, so we let that cook away. Nearly ready. Okay, and then what we're going to do is now we're going to add in our, you just have to make sure that our vegetables are well strained. Okay, because it's best not to have any water at all in your blanched broccoli and carrots, because you'll get a reaction off the pan will spit at you. So just to make sure that the veg is nice and dry when it's going into the pan. Okay, so there we have our stir fry of vegetables, which is going to accompany the main dish, and it's coming together now. Okay, so we're just going to turn off our pan, and we're just going to add in a couple of knobs of butter into the stir fry, just to give it a nice rich kind of flavour. So our stir fry is ready. Okay, our sauce is ready, it's after thickening. Okay, so we're going to turn that off, and what we're going to do is with the sauce as well, we're going to add in a few knobs of butter just to give the sauce a nice shine. Okay, so the butter will give the sauce a nice shine. Okay, So it's very important not to bring your sauce back to the boil after you put the butter into the sauce, and because what will happen is then your sauce will crack. Okay, so the sauce is turned off. At the last minute, we've thrown in a couple of knobs of butter for to give it that lovely shine. Okay, our chicken is nearly ready in the oven also. Now it's all starting to come together. The chicken has been in the oven for the last 15 to 20 minutes, right? So how we know the chicken is cooked is we pierce the middle part of the chicken, right, and we press down on the chicken. Okay, so if the juice comes out pink, it's not cooked. If the juice comes out clear, it's cooked. All right, so you can see there our chicken fillets, and they're all cooked because there's juice. You can see the clear juice that is coming out of the chicken. So our chicken is ready to go. All right, so now we're going to start putting the finishing touch and putting our dish now. Okay, so what we need for service is we have our plates here, and we have our two scone cutters, which we're going to put on the middle of the plates. Okay, so we have one scone cutter, two scone cutters. Okay, we have 3 spoons. We have one for our veg, and we have one for our sauce, and then we have another spoon for the start dishing up our Colcannon. Alright, so we just give our Colcannon a nice stir. So what we're going to do is now we're going to start putting this dish together now. So it's very important, if you're putting a hot pot on the counter, make sure there's a chopping board underneath it. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to start filling up the scone cutter with the Colcannon. Okay, just like so. This is going to give it a little bit of height. Okay, and we're going to press down on it now. Okay, so that's one. Same here. Just going to fill it up. Nice and heated all the way up. Okay. So we're going to smoothen it off now. Okay. So we have our stone cutter now, is full up now with the Colcannon. Okay, so what we're going to do is now we're going to remove the scone cutter. Okay, so when you remove the scone cutter, you've got a nice shape there with the Colcannon. Okay, so we remove that scone cutter. Okay, and there we have a lovely shape of Colcannon there on the plate. So the next thing to do now is we're going to add our stir fry of vegetable, and we're just going to put it to one side here. Okay, so we're going to pack up the veg with our spoon, that it looks nice and neat and nice and colourful. Alright, so we've got one plate done. We're going to change it around. Okay, and we're going to do the exact same thing. So the peppers and the carrots more or less on the bottom. Okay, and then what we're going to do is then we're going to put the broccoli just on top. All right, so there we see we have a nice colour here going on with our Colcannon and our stir fry veg. Okay, so we're just after taking our chicken out of the oven. Alright, so our chicken is done. So what we're going to do is now we're going to place one of the fillets of chicken on top of the Colcannon. Okay, like so. Okay, okay, one, and then the other one goes on. Okay, so there we go. We've a nice bit of shape here starting to take place here on our Colcannon. So we have our chicken on top, we have our stir fry to the side, and we're going to finish it off now with some sauce. Okay, so we've just coated our chicken with our lovely mushroom sauce. Okay, alright, so we can see the Colcannon is starting to take place, and we're nearly finished now. So there we go, something just nice and simple. Chicken, baked chicken with a mushroom sauce with some Colcannon. and some stir fry. So we're just going to finish it off now by just adding some sprinkled chopped chives on the dish. Okay, so there we go. There's our Colcannon on the bottom, our stir fry vegetables, our baked chicken, and with our lovely mushroom sauce. Okay, so I hope you enjoy it.